Hi, so we're back with another video for Virteasy Dental 2020.06. In the first video, we showed you how to go through the standard exercise for the workshop and restorative, etc. And now we're going to work through the workflow for implantology. So for the overview, similar to before, we're going to call this my second exercise now. And this is the overview notes for the simulator. And here I can insert images no matter what I want, and at the bottom right change the level, often used to show the difficulty of the exercise. When I'm done the instructions, these allow me to give students lesson notes, for instance, and we can have multiple pages and multiple images. So here I might choose this image I took earlier, and on page 2 we can add more notes. And we can change this default image now to a second one. And each page will have its own notes and its own images. Now, number 3, the segmentation. This is much like the solid creation, but here we're working with DICOM. So we have a set library which you can choose. So I'll choose series number 2. And here it will load the DICOM and you have a CT view like you do in many other programs. So this is what gives us the scan that we can use for the planning. But we also need a segmentation, which is what gives us our 3D view, which is currently empty. So we can do this manually. So we can open up the threshold button just here. Normally drag this across so we have a little bit more control. And then you control the smoothing and the threshold. So this is a little bit like Photoshop, for instance. You play around with the threshold settings until it gives you a 3D image that resembles your scan. Now watch out, you need one that fills in enough of the gaps, because that's going to affect the drilling, your contact. But if you go too far off the threshold, you get a lot of noise that's coming through. So depending on how clean your scan is, depends on how accurate this is going to be. And if you're lucky, you'll also be able to take possibly an intraoral scan. And then here you have the segmentation. So here I'm going to combine the CT scan with the intraoral scan, which we've got from the patient. And then when this imports, you'll see it come up on the scan as yellow on top of the DICOM. And you can see here it matches, but not quite. So what we have to use here is the translation and the rotation. Now the rotation looks okay, so we're just going to play around with some of the direction. So what I'm working off is my top right view here, and I'm just going to line up. So it looks like I change it on the Z axis. So play around with that until it matches close enough. And same with the other views. The axial on top left, just tweak it once or twice to get it in the middle. And then on the X axis, it looks like possibly just 1 or 2 across to match these up, possibly a -2, and then it helps us use the other views to be able to come up with something that matches really well. There we go. So I think that's good enough for now. You see the yellow segmentation follows well around the grey on the DICOM, and you can click to see that from the different views as well, the different slices. But when you're ready, just click Confirm Segmentation and overwrite the existing one. So that's the 3D done. So we have our 3D image, which looks really good. And now you need to go crop haptic solid. And this is going to be what allows us to have the contact within the scene. So you want to choose an area that you want to be able to have contact with at the depth that you want, obviously perhaps a little bit more, and the adjacent teeth so it feels realistic in the simulation. You can control all the settings, but I tend to find it easier on the 3D view. And then just click crop, overwrite that segmentation again, and then this is going to create the separate part, which is the haptic. So while it's grey and that's your visual, you see it's just changed blue, and that's our haptics. That's a real solid we're going to be able to touch. Now I'll move myself out of the way. but you want to generate the non-haptic surface unless you don't want to see it. And then just click OK at the bottom. So the OK there confirms everything. That's your segmentation from the 3D to the haptic. And like before, we can take a snapshot of the 3D view, and that uses it for the overview. So then we don't have to leave the program too much for any other files. And if you haven't seen it, the show the scene marker helps us with the rotation of the solid. Sometimes the scans come in upside down, and this helps us see where the plate's going to be in the scene and work around that. So number 4 on the planning, we can create a new panoramic curve. Click once at each point of the panoramic curve you want to create, and then lastly double click just to confirm it. Now you can click anywhere you want along this, and that's going to change this lingual view. And once you've positioned yourself, you can then choose implant, new implant, and then we have a list of asphatex here. So I'm going to just choose a little 9x3 and then choose the tooth you're working on. I'm just going to choose 36. So then from that, like before, you can click the middle and drag it down. And with the 3D view, you can see exactly what's going on as well. So then here you can drag it across. The one at the top of the gizmo allows you to rotate, and as you bring it out, you can just check your position and make sure it's well placed. So we've been working on nerves as well. This isn't fully implemented, but it gives you a visual representation, so you can see there a nerve gets added. Once you're happy, you can move across to the assessment. A lot more criteria on implantology, so we can change the depth, for instance, and then the lingual, the distal, and everything else. So we're working with Nancy in France, the University of Laurent, to be able to configure the evaluation exactly as we want it. And here we can control the toolkit, so you can give access to certain tools if you want to, just by double clicking each one, or deactivate it, and that gives the students access to everything, the tools in restoration, endodontics as well. And finally, the export. So my second exercise, implantology, and if you want to control the smoothing, finally click save. That's going to create the DICOM data. It's creating the haptic solid, that's the part you touch, and it's writing everything to its correct file. It puts across the lesson notes, the images, and now, just like that, everything's on our server, and all the simulators can use the exercise. So I really hope you enjoy all the improvements from 2020-06, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.